Hello, I'm Andy McGrath, the editor of Rouleur magazine. Today, I'm joined by Amy Jones and Joe Timms. We're here to debrief Strade Bianche, a race more dramatic than Puccini's operas, more beautiful than Michele Bartoli's pedal stroke, and more intoxicating than the glass of Chianti I've got on the go right now. How's everything going, guys?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Very well.
Getting over the excitement of the race.
Yeah, so only finished 45 minutes ago. Like, what are the first impressions or feelings about it?
For me, I think it was all about Mathieu van der Poel. Clearly, I mean, the two accelerations we saw from him, first creating an initial separation with himself and Alaphilippe and Egan Bernal, and then on the final climb into Siena, that was absolutely incredible. I did not expect to see any rider dropping Alaphilippe like that. And in the women's race, I think we saw a few surprises as well, with the big hitters, in my opinion, just missing out on the final move.
Yeah, I think both races were like really exciting additions. Like, obviously, like it's one of the most exciting races. It's always good to watch, but they both came down to the wire kind of until the very last climb, which is the best. When Strade Bianche is the best is when on that final climb you see everybody battle it out. So yeah, but two really exciting races.
Well, should we start with the women's race that finished around lunchtime? We saw Chantal van den Broek-Blaak from SD Worx. Just, I suppose, not out sprinting, but attacking Elisa Longo Borghini on the final climb, that steep ramp into Siena to win. Amy, like, what stood out for you from the race most?
All 20 kilometers that we saw of the race, a whole 40 minutes or so worth. But it was full of action still, like as women's races always are. But I think for me, it was how we sort of saw like a similar thing play out that we did last weekend. Like, and it was SD Worx again, just firing riders off, like attacking, like using their strength in numbers. Annemiek van Vleuten was back at the front of the race. But again, like she still just didn't really seem to be like she was last season. But yeah, there's too many things. It was just exciting, the whole thing from start to finish of the 40 minutes that I saw.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the SD Worx team they really do look unbeatable right now. And I think even they thought they may have played it not quite as well as they could have, because I think they were panicking a little bit, thinking that Longo Borghini perhaps would have taken the win, because I think they were unsure whether to try and bring in the two rider group that had gone up the roads. Of course, Van der Breggen did pick up third place as well, so she probably would have been the winner had it been a big group coming in to Siena together. But they just seem unbeatable right now. They really do.
Yeah, towards the end of the race, I think if you'd said to anyone, like on paper, it looked like Elisa had it in the bag. Like, you can't ever underestimate Chantal Blaak. Like, she's been world champion. Like, she's an amazing rider. But your money would have been on Longo Borghini on that climb. And I think, yeah, like you say, they were sort of, Ashleigh Moolman-Pasio was attacking off the front, like a few times. It looked as if they were almost trying to bring it back. But yeah, luckily they didn't.
I suppose this is one of the things. How surprised, if at all, should we be by Chantal's impressive victory?
Like obviously in hindsight, it's easy to be like, oh no, not at all. Like she's showed such strength. But I think if you'd said to someone like Elisa Longo Borghini and Chantal van den Broek-Blaak are going to go head to head on a really steep climb, you would say Longo Borghini's got that. So yeah, I think maybe Longo Borghini used up a little bit too much earlier in the race. I think she's really missing that duo that she's got with Lizzie Deignan, where the two of them sort of, bounce off each other to wear down everybody else. And I think in the absence of her, she was sort of left not completely to her own devices, because she had some teammates with her earlier in the race, but maybe, she used a little bit too much energy. But I think what Broek-Blaak did really well was she made her sit. She sat on her wheel, for like the whole time. Like, she didn't come through. She just, she let her burn energy. I think she played it perfectly.
So we have, I think the next race in a few weeks' time is a Trofeo Binda. And the question that every team that isn't SD Worx will be thinking is, how on earth do we beat this incredibly strong squad? So they had 4 riders in the top 11 today. I think 3 in the top 6, with Van der Breggen 3rd and Mathieu 6th. What is the answer to that big question?
Yeah, I think it's the $1 million question that all the teams and everyone's asking, really. I mean, it's hard, to even look past them at all, because they do just have, they've got so many options. And, even, those riders in the top 11, every single one of them could have won that race from, any group. So I think going into the races, teams are just going to have to try and take them by surprise. I think that's the only way to do it. I don't know. I'm not a master tactician, but they're looking pretty unbeatable.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's crucial that some of the other big kind of contenders have at least one more teammate there towards the final, at least, because we saw Van Vleuten, we saw Longo, Borghini, of course, spend a lot of energy just too early in the race, and that's what cost them, I think. So it's really a really difficult one, but I think SD Worx, they look unbeatable for sure right now.
Yeah, maybe it's a bit simple to say, but my feeling is that maybe in a month's time for Flanders and Roubaix, all the rivals, their form will be slightly better, or a few of these extremely strong riders on SD Worx currently will have dropped down slightly. Just a few percent will be enough to even it up. Canyon SRAM can maybe offer a bit more. I was kind of expecting maybe Michaela Harvey to be in the big shake-up, because I know she loves kind of riding on gravel roads and she adores Strade Bianche, but that didn't quite happen. So
I think for a lot of them, it's the first races of the season are just because for the women, this was, for some of them, it was their first race of the season. For some, it was the second. And for some, it was at maximum, it's the 3rd race of the season, which doesn't give you much chance to get that race speed in your legs and to get back to grips with being in the peloton. So I think we might see that, but then there's also riders on SD Worx, this was Ashley Moore-Passier's first race of the season, so she's only going to get stronger. There's I was really impressed with Marta Cavalli of FDJ. I think she did really well at the end. She didn't almost get there, but she took a flyer at the end to try and get to the leaders at the start of the climb. And she'd been really aggressive earlier in the race. I think maybe some of the other teams just need to work on their tactics, work on sort of communicating with each other on the road. And maybe some teams need to work together as well to try and beat SD Worx.
Absolutely. So let's move on to our unsung heroes. Amy, who's yours from the race?
Yeah, so I was going to say, if I had to choose one, I would say Lotte Kopecky, because again, I think I said her last week, but she's been so strong in these first few races, and she was looking strong again today, but she had a really unfortunate mechanical on, I think, either the final or the penultimate sector, just as she was at the front of the race. So I think she could have really been up there if it wasn't for that. But also then I just mentioned Marta Cavalli, I'd also say her, because she lit it up as well. So yeah.
Well, you're allowed to have two. And Joe, what about yours?
Well, I think mentioning last week's picks again, Demi Vollering was very strong today. I think well inside the top 10. I picked her at Omloop as well. But today I will go for Annemiek van Vleuten, actually, who perhaps is a bit too obvious, but she did so much work on the front today, really trying to bring in every single attack. She was forced by others to do much of the chasing. So yeah, I'll go for Van Vleuten. I think it was a strong ride today, despite missing out on the back-to-back victory.
I'm going to pick someone called Kristen Faulkner, who I admit I hadn't heard of before today. When I looked down the results sheet, you had all the kind of expected team leaders in the top 15, and 16th with Kristen, who rides for Tibco. She's from Alaska. She's 28. She only started racing in 2017. She used to row for Harvard, and was juggling top US racing with working full time as a venture capitalist. So this was her first Strade Bianche, pretty much her first race in Europe. To finish 16th is extremely impressive. So she's one to watch out for the rest of the season, because she could be one of those late bloomers who comes to cycling when she's slightly older than most. And yeah, she could be up there, like even in the next few months.
Tibco are really, they're not a team to be like underestimated. Like they're quite on paper like a smaller team, but they produce some really strong riders. And Kirsten Faulkner has been really strong on Zwift, in Zwift racing actually. So yeah, definitely.
Kirsten Faulkner. I think I was calling her Kristen Faulkner. Well, that's
I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
Unknown she is to me. I think maybe I'm wrong. But either way, incredibly impressive. Yeah. So
yeah.
Plus, I think Lauren Stevens was maybe on the podium last year or the year before at Strade Bianche for Tibco. So yeah, they're always dangerous.
Yeah.
Well, should we move on to the men's race, which was won in stunning fashion, really, by Mathieu van der Poel with two incredible accelerations. The first one on Le Tolfe, the final section of Stellata, to bring with him Egan Bernal and Julian Alaphilippe. And the last, again, on that final kind of very evocative steep ramp to Siena to blow away that pair. What were the things that surprised you most about the race, Joe?
Firstly, I think the two accelerations we witnessed by Mathieu van der Poel, the explosive, searing accelerations were just out of this world. They really were. So yeah, that is certainly just going to stick in my mind from this race. But also, I think the Ineos Grenadiers had a really, really great race. Perhaps a surprise. They had the numerical advantage in that front group for much of the final, with both Egan Bernal and Tom Pidcock there. So I think a really good showing by the Grenadiers today.
And Amy, as for you?
Yeah, I think Egan Bernal, like, it's not really the kind of race that you might expect to see him there in that kind of position in. So yeah, that was quite surprising. And yeah, also Van der Poel's acceleration at the end was just like, I want to see the numbers on that.
Yeah, so when I'm sprinting, I hope it looks like that, like when I'm going that fast, but I'm sure it definitely does not. You mentioned Bernal too. Like, that's one of the things that I love about Strade Bianche that makes it probably unique in the World Tour, that you can have the current Tour de France champion, the former Tour de France champion, like a first-year pro with a cross pedigree, like Tom Pidcock, two former World Cross champions who are now the top Core Classics riders, and a complete no-mark like Michael Gogol. Kind of bless him in that company. It's that kind of race where you get this unique mix of kind of disciplines and riders that can sprint and climb and do the high mountains. Because I was thinking, like, what is it that makes Strade Bianche so special and makes people talk of it as a potential sixth monument, do you think?
Like you say, Andy, I think the very types of riders that can win this race. We saw Tour de France winners today. We saw Tour of Flanders winners today, and everything in between with Alaphilippe, Van der Poel, Pogacar there, Bernal, of course. It can be such a varied race in terms of who can win it. It's not a pure classics rider's race. So for that reason, I think it's very special. But also, you have to say the scenery, the white Tuscan roads, just an incredible race to watch, both if you're watching the race or watching the scenery on the side of the roads.
Yeah, I think it's just it's a different race. Like, you know, you've got the gravel sectors, and I think it's the challenge of it. Like, I think length is a really stupid parameter to like judge whether a race is like worthy of a title like that or not. Like, I think longer races don't necessarily mean they're more exciting. Yes, okay, like it's a greater challenge sometimes, but you can't say Strade Bianche is not a challenging race.
Absolutely. That's the interesting thing that I've watched like the last 50, 60K, and that was plenty for me. Like, there was enough action there, like not too much and not too little. But of course, maybe you get a kind of different race if it was 50K, yeah, like 50K is long, but why does it need to be when it was so well balanced? And we saw it kind of whittling down in the way that we did. One more thing that I saw on social media, like in the run up to the race, was some hope from people that it would be muddy or rainy. And on the one hand, I would like to maybe see that one time in the next few years, but to miss out on the glorious Tuscan cypress trees and the farmhouse and the rolling green hills would be really sad too. That goes a long way to making it what it is. Possibly the most beautiful race in cycling. But a lot of races make that claim anyway. It's dangerous.
The scenery is stunning though. Like, I mean, yeah, it's stunning. I'm in Girona and it wasn't even sunny here today. We were like, it looks like a nicer day there. Absolutely.
Let's quickly pick through some of the talking points. So Egan Bernal was third with a bad back. Is he back, do we think?
Well, do we believe he's struggling with his back to the extent he's claiming? I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's possible to finish on the podium of a race like Strade if you're struggling severely with back pain. But yeah, I think he's back. I really do think he's back. And I think heading towards the Giro, after the form we saw today, as well as earlier in the season at the Tour de la Provence, where he performed well on Mont Ventoux, I think for sure Bernal is heading towards the top of the favourites list for the Giro d'Italia for sure.
Big call, that. But if Tom
or
Pidcock
maybe he's
races,
reinventing himself as a classics rider.
That's what I really like to see, actually, that if Pogacar clearly has potential to win the monument, so does Bernal. Like Lombardy, Strade Bianche is basically a monument. We're getting back to that cycling where like kind of every rider races hard from February to October and can win almost any race. That would be really nice. Speaking of that kind of rider, last year's winner, well, 7 months ago, well, Fanart didn't have it today. What are the consequences for that for the next month?
Personally, I don't think they're massive, to be honest with you. It was his first road race of the season today at Strade, so I think we can forgive Fanart somewhat for finishing in 4th place. And yeah, I don't think it's going to affect his season massively moving forwards. I think he's at Tirreno Adriatico next, which is coming up in a few days time in Italy as well. So yeah, I think Fanart is fine, to be honest, and I don't think he's going to be overly worried with 4th place today.
Finished 4th. It's not the worst day on the back, is it?
It's a good point. The way that he went off the back, I think when Van der Poel went with like 15k to go, it looked like he was done, but clearly he's made of certain stuff than pretty much everyone else because he came back. It's true. What about our unsung heroes for the men's race then?
Go on, Joe.
Yeah, no, I do want to mention Quintin Simmons here because no matter what you think of him off the bike. I don't think any of us in any way agree with his actions off the bike as of late and last year. Obviously, he was suspended by his team as well. But nonetheless, I think in today's race, he was one of the strongest riders for sure, which he showed, whilst also being one of the unluckiest at the same time. He had a very inopportune puncture at a bad moment as well. It was a very long puncture too. And then he had a nasty crash as well, where he was taken out by an Alpecin-Fenix rider. He did battle on to finish the race, but outside the top 50. So yeah, I think on the roads, in the race today, Quintin Simmons was very strong. He's 19 years old. He's uber talented. And he was very unlucky. And like I said, we don't agree with what he's done off the bike for sure. But he was unlucky today.
Amy? I mean, to say that Quintin Simmons is controversial, I mean, just to avoid libel, Andy, you've got the word in of exactly what they said, right? What was it?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say, but we know Quinn was suspended last autumn for, I think, divisive, incendiary and detrimental social media conduct for something that he put on Twitter, which was, I believe, a brown hand waving goodbye. So we don't like to see that, and I don't like to see that. But I also don't like to see a very talented young American rider crashing out with 20k to go when he was set for a top 15, top 20 finish. So
yeah, I mean, look, it's one thing to like maybe be a bit smug when he gets a puncture, but a crash is different. Like, you don't know what the outcomes of that is going to be. But I just think, like, until he like acknowledges, because he hasn't yet really acknowledged that he did anything wrong, he seems to still, like, I don't know if he's playing dumb or what, but he just says he doesn't understand what he did wrong. So until he like fully comes out and apologizes, like, I'm going to find it really hard to root for him in any way. But yeah, there's no denying that he's really strong.
Yeah, absolutely. And who's your unsung hero?
I'm going to say Tom Pidcock, like, because I think he, you know, he's in, I'm going to get this wrong, is his second race on the road?
Yeah.
Yeah, and, you know, obviously everyone expects, it's almost like a surprise, but not a surprise, like how well he's doing. But he, like, it, because he's Tom Pidcock, everyone almost thinks like, oh, of course he's slotted in like that. But it's like, you know, that's a really big deal that he's able to be up there with like such like big hitters. Yeah, Tom Pidcock.
That's a really good point, that people talk of him already as a superstar. Like, that's what like Rob Hatch literally called him on the GCN commentary today. And it's a second race. Like, come on, guys. Like, we know he's super talented, but it's one thing going from U23 to being a hitter on the World Tour scene, like just in the company, like doing turns with Alaphilippe and kind of Bernal and even Pogacar. Like, this is a cream of the crop. So that ride will take some beating even this season. And you've got to think that he'll be better next year and the year after when he's got more experience of all these races, but especially Strade. So
yeah,
definite future winner.
I was going to say he's gone from racing like 1 hour to winning a race like this, but then Van der Poel's done the same thing. So.
Yeah, and I think Pidcock won the under-23 Giro last year too, so he can pretty much do anything. He's just one of those frustrating people that could probably start playing football and end up scoring for Liverpool or something. My unsung hero, I'm going to say Davide Ballerini, who won Het Nieuwsblad last week, not last year, and was a really good support rider for Alaphilippe, who was his combative attacking best, but couldn't quite make the difference today. All right. Well, that's it from us. Thanks for watching, and tune in soon for another debrief with Rouleur.